with just a little self-awareness. And the way we do this is, you guys might have seen this, we make a brain with our hands. So if you guys want to help me with this, you would put your hand up, and then you would wrap your thumb to the inside of your palm, and then bring your fingers together and then wrap your thumb around, so that if you look at it, it looks kind of like a brain. And so we tell kids that this is your brain when it's nice and calm, but sometimes we have these puppy minds that run away with us and get dysregulated. Well, we don't say dysregulated, but get crazy in response to stress, and that looks and feels like this maybe, right? And so then, but sometimes we feel kind of okay, halfway, and then sometimes we feel calm, right? And so we say to kids, so let's just check in non-verbally, because we know that this stuff is processed non-verbally. How are you feeling today? No right or wrong answer. So if you guys want to show me, are you feeling like this, okay, or calm, just before we start? Anyone can just, and we always say, you know, you can choose or not to answer, and or there's no right answer. It's just you checking in with yourself and us sharing how we feel. So so now we'll start with just a tiny little amount of movement. So the goal of our movement, of our yoga, is to pair our breath with our movement and just start to get in that rhythm. So if you want to come to your back just away from the chair, maybe scooch yourself up to the edge of your chair so that your spine can be nice and long. And then just feeling your feet on the floor and your nice long spine. And then on your next inhale, bring your arms out to the side and just up over your head, and then have your palms meet in the middle. You can't see. And then on your exhale, draw your palms down to just come together at your heart center right here. And then we'll just do that for 2 more times. So just inhale, arms up. And then exhale, hands come down just to your heart center as you exhale. And then last time, inhale, arms up. You can feel your chest lift. You can feel the crown of your head float, fingertips rise, and then palms together. And long, slow exhale, hands come back to heart center. So that's our very quick yoga portion of this. And then next we talk with kids about how our brains can be like puppies. And have you ever seen a puppy run around crazy and they're hard to train? And so these are our puppy paws, and we take what we call a pause and breathe. So we put one puppy paw on our chest and the other puppy paw on our belly. And we have that nice long spine. And then we just soften our eyes or close them. And then just turn inward. So start to kind of create a felt sense of your body as a whole. And just remind yourself, really start to notice the fact that you're breathing. Not changing your breath. Just noticing that there's an inhale that fills up your torso and makes your hands move. And then there's an exhale. And just noticing how the sensations of your body changes as the air comes in and goes out. And also your puppy mind might come in and start having commentary, and that's very natural and normal. And when that happens, you just gently usher your puppy back to the awareness of your breath and the movement of your hands. And then we'll just take one last breath here. And then you can slowly open your eyes and bring your hands down. And then, so after we've done usually like a 20-minute yoga practice with kids and maybe 10 minutes of different types of breaths, then we do another check-in. And so you guys can show me, did that change how you felt at all? Sometimes you still feel like this, and that's part of mindfulness. You know, sometimes it's just every time you practice, it's a drop in the bucket, so you don't have to end up like this. But if you guys want to show me with your hands, are you feeling crazy? Are you feeling okay? Or are you feeling pretty calm? Awesome. All right. So, hi, Patty. Are you next?
Yep. Yeah. That was great. Thank you. Is that
welcome?
Complete your.
Yeah.
Thank you. That was wonderful. I love that brain. That's great. All right. So now we will turn to our panel. I'm just going to put a link here. These are just the questions that I'm asking the panelists, if in case anyone wants to refer to that. So I'm just going to ask each panelist to kind of introduce yourself, share the mission of your organization or your company, and how your work might help people, especially youth, develop resilience to deal with stress and trauma. Because we learned from the book that while trauma or high stress dose can have a huge impact on a person's life, it is possible to recover and heal. And this capacity is often referred to as resilience. It comes from both natural qualities of someone's personality as well as nurtured skills and activities. So how your work helps people develop that resilience. And since this discussion series has the goal of being a starting point for building a trauma-informed, self-healing community, if there are any opportunities available for the community to get involved with your work, please share that. We would love to hear. So Rachel graciously volunteered to start us off and be our first panelist.
So my first question is who we are. Mindful You was Mindy Dugard and I founded Mindful You a couple of years ago because we realized we were both really passionate about bringing research-based, secular, trauma-informed yoga and mindfulness practices to children and adults in organizations and in our community. And we really wanted to bring them in a way that allowed the community, the people in the organizations to integrate these practices into their daily life so that they could reap the benefits. And so we realized that in order to do that, our bigger goal needed to be to create a culture, an organizational culture, where there was a shared language of what these practices were and why we would do them, and also to make the practices interactive and also nonverbal in whatever ways they could be, because we know from the book that trauma and stress are processed nonverbally, and we end up giving words to them, but really, especially kids, carry this stuff around nonverbally, and when they're triggered, words are less effective than turning inward, right, and using that felt sense and using the nonverbals. So we teach kids that, and adults, the adults that work with them, that taking that step back and noticing that felt sense of our bodies and our breath is like a superpower, and that practicing that superpower over time is like a workout for their muscles of resilience, basically. And so small practices like the pause and be we just did are a workout that grows the parts of their brain. So we teach these kids, before COVID, they got to wear the brain hat, but now they just have to look at it. And so we teach them that every time they practice their superpower, they grow their muscle of mindfulness, that all these parts of their brain start to work together as a team. And the older kid, well, even 5-year-olds, we teach them what the names of these parts are: prefrontal cortex, insula, amygdala, and what's the last one? And hippocampus, and what their functions are. And so these kids, over time, it's really cool that it kind of develops their sense of agency, that they can do little things that grow their brain and then also help them learn and play and make good choices. So we try to make things as interactive and really concrete as possible, while teaching them these skills and teaching them that they are priming their brains for resilience, right? And we talk in whatever developmentally appropriate way about the things that our presenters, Nancy, Michael, and the book spoke so eloquently about: the necessity of self-awareness and how you get that from going inside, right? And then, so you have to be able to feel your big responses and your stressors, and then that turns into self-regulation, where you have a space between what happens to you and then your response to it, and you can choose a better response if you create that space with these practices. And then also that these practices help with grit, help with perseverance, and the underpinnings of resilience that we know from the book and from the presenters. And then last, but certainly not least, we spent a lot of time talking about relationships and how when the parts of your brain are working together as a team, and especially the insula and the parts that process emotions and process other people's emotions, how mindfulness helps you feel connected, feel that connection, which kids who are stressed and have a history of trauma, we know that they struggle with from the amazing talks that we have listened to. So, Nancy in her presentation said that relationships are the #1 builders of resilience. And and that the body keeps the score talked about how we need to have this shared language of trauma. We kind of see ourselves as developing a shared language of healthy responses to trauma. So that when a teacher can go like this with a kid, and instead of saying, sit down, calm down, quiet down, can go like this, and then they can breathe together. And then they're co-regulating, right? Their brains are coming into regulation. And we know that a kid with trauma, an adult with trauma, anybody with trauma needs that physical co-regulation and that physical self-awareness before they're gonna be able to respond. And so I guess that's. And then opportunities for community to get involved. So we've done a lot of work with the Boys and Girls Club, especially since COVID hit, because they were so innovative and responsive to the needs of the community that they did a summer program even in the midst of everything that was going on, and so we did yoga and mindfulness outside, and which was really cool. And they always take volunteers, and so their whole mission is trauma informed and responsive to the community, in that they are looking to support each child, especially the most vulnerable in the community. So and so we would direct you towards the Boys and Girls Club website, bgcsjc.org. I think Sarah put that on our list. And they will put you on their list of volunteers for when things get safer, and volunteers can actually come and do the things that they need.
Wonderful, thank you.
You're welcome.
I just put a link in the chat, so if you want to refer to it, all of the contact info for all of our panelists, links to their organizations or websites, how to get involved, so check that out, and I'll paste it again later too. So thank you. Now I would like Letty from CASA, would you be able to share with us about your organization or program, and if there's any ways for people to get involved?
Yeah, can you hear me okay? Because I'm on, okay. I want to apologize very quickly because I do have to sign off early. I'm actually in the middle of training volunteers right now for our organization, so I have somebody else moderating in the interim. But my name is Letty Stanton-Verduzco. I'm the recruiter and trainer for the CASA program in St. Joseph County. CASA stands for Court Appointed Special Advocates. So our mission and what we do is we advocate on behalf of children in need of services. We're a voice for children in court. All the children that we work with, that we advocate for, are currently going through the CHIN system, which is Child in Need of Services, and they have a DCS case that is open and being monitored by the court to make sure parents are receiving services in order to help that family. Many of our children are in the foster care system or in relative or kinship placement. But all of our children have experienced some sort of trauma. They are in this system because they are victims of abuse and neglect. And that varies from anywhere from being a drug exposed infant to being sexually molested by a caregiver. So we see and hear everything. And our job is to make sure that the children, we are advocating for what's in their best interest. A lot of times with these cases, a lot of the focus is on making sure parents are receiving services in order to help remedy their situation, in order to be able to take care of their child and keep their child safe. we want to make sure that children are not being forgotten in this process because they have experienced abuse and neglect, usually at the hands of a caregiver, and that carries its own trauma. So we do very extensive training with our volunteers. It's an 8-week training. We have adjusted to do that virtually right now. We want to make sure that we cover everything from how the courts work to how to complete paperwork, how to read it. We also do sessions on cultural competency and how trauma affects children and how it affects them differently, because you never know what you're going to see. Some kids react differently. It comes out in behavior, it comes out in what they say, what they don't say, what they do and what they don't do. And we want to make sure that we can build that rapport with kids so that we can advocate for them to make sure that they're being cared for during this time. So whether that's advocating for being able to visit their siblings, right? We talked about relationships, and it's not just our positive relationship, but are we helping them maintain other relationships that are going to be beneficial in their growth? So that could be with siblings, with other family members, with maybe a biological parent who hadn't been a part of their life. It could be advocating for therapeutic services, for family therapy, for visitation with their biological parents to maintain that bond. It could also be doing something as simple as getting that teddy bear from home, right, that they miss, that is a comfort object for them. We are finding all these little things to hopefully make this whole process that can take months, sometimes years, so that a child can get through that and is as they're processing everything, as they're dealing with everything, as they're going through this very complex system that's complex for adults to comprehend, let alone children, so that they know they have somebody there. So whether they switch foster homes, whether they switch schools, they have one consistent adult through that entire process to help them through it. As far as being involved with what we do quarterly trainings. We are currently we're on week 5 of an 8-week program for the fall. On November 6th, I'll have 15 new community volunteers that are sworn in to advocate on behalf of kids. At the start of this year, January 1, we had 291 kids on a wait list waiting for a volunteer. As of when this class started the first week, we had dropped that wait list down to 66. Our goal is to wipe that wait list out by the end of the year so that every child that is considered a child in need of services through the DCS system has an advocate for them to make sure that their needs are being met through this very complex system. So if you're interested, I know I gave the link as well as my contact information to Sarah, but sjccasa.org, there's some information there, as well as our volunteer application. We do a volunteer interview with everybody. You have to complete the training. You have to complete extensive background screens. We want to make sure that we are also putting people in place to be able to work with kids who've been traumatized, because it's not easy to hear the stories that we hear, to see the pictures that we see, to manage through a system that is imperfect, can be very frustrating. So we ask a big commitment. We ask our volunteers to commit 1.5 years to our program so that you can build that relationship with the child, with the family, to help navigate them through that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I'm going to have to excuse myself, but thank you all.
Yeah, we really appreciate you taking the time to be here, and thank you for doing that work. That is such an amazing program. So now let's go to Drake Schrader from United Youth Theater, if you would like to tell us about your organization.
Yes, thank you, Sarah. Good evening, everyone. I just want to thank you all for being here and for having me. I'm super excited to be a part of the panel this evening. So my name is Drake Schrader. I am the Artistic Director for United Youth Theater. Additionally, on top of that, I work for South Bend Community Schools and our Department of Student Services. In 2016, I helped co-found United Youth Theater with my business partner, Claire Costello. And our mission is to make a difference by helping every kid gain confidence, foster creativity, and develop mutual trust and respect through the arts. When Claire and I originally started UIT, a big part of the vision was to just improve access to theater and the performing arts for kids in our community. But it quickly turned into this foundation where we realized we could use the power of theater to really change the lives of the kids that were involved in our organization and make a bigger impact and difference in our community. And so through our work, how we do that, there's a couple different core pieces that I see. Number one is confidence. This is something that I am talking about all the time when it comes to our kids. And it's obviously something very important for us organizationally. It's a staple of our mission. We are constantly working with our students on the stage when we're working on a show and off the stage when we're just having a conversation, trying to instill confidence in each and every kid that comes through our door. For us, we see, when we talk about being resilient, we see confidence as being a core piece that translates into being a resilient human being. The second piece that I see as a core for us is empowering our kids. This is something I talk about nonstop. We strive to empower the students that come through our building. So when you come see a UIT show, you're not just seeing kids on the stage, you're seeing kids behind the scenes, backstage, doing scene changes, doing makeup, helping with costumes, stage managing, assistant directing. They are involved in every aspect of this show from start to finish. And this is something really important for us because it allows us to empower them to step into roles that they may not necessarily get the chance to at such a young age. And it gives them the opportunity to be leaders and really take on those leadership roles. And we feel that when you can give a kid that leadership role and make them believe in themselves, that they could do anything. And again, just trying to build that resilience. Additionally, I don't know how many of you got to the end of the book, but that last chapter talks about theater and the arts and how it positively can change trauma and affect trauma and build resilience in us all. Obviously, I'm sure you can all guess that was my favorite chapter in the book. But one thing it did for me is, as I was reading it, is it gave me a larger view of theater and how we can use the arts to create social change, to develop that resilience in our kids and heal trauma. And so one story that really stuck out to me while reading the book was the story of the young man, Nick, who dealt with illness and allergies and really didn't want to get out of bed until he discovered theater. And then he talks about how he goes on and starts getting all these lead roles and really just kind of blossoms into this really incredible, resilient human being. This is something that I've seen in our own students through our work at UIT. And quickly, I'll share a personal story of a student I worked with. I had a young lady about a year and a half, 2 years ago that auditioned for a show. She was brand new to us, came in, auditioned for Beauty and the Beast, got in the chorus. Great kid. We all really enjoyed working with her, and we got done with the show. And her mom comes up to me and pulls me aside and says, "I just want you to know that this show helped her get through her school year. When she started out the year, she was really struggling, wasn't really interested in doing much, was struggling at school, struggling at home, and the environment that we had created for her to come into and the confidence we instilled in her helped allow her to navigate some of the issues she was dealing with and got her excited about life and what she was doing on and off the stage again." There's a million stories like that I love, and if I could share each and every one, I totally would. But that's just one brief story of the impact that UIT has created on our kids and the work we do. Additionally, we have created, and this was something Claire and I didn't really foresee happening because when we started, it was solely focused on the kids, but we have now developed this really amazing group of adults who have come in and volunteered with us, helped design shows, helped volunteer on shows, who now have created this little community of their own, and not only are there to support each other as parents, but support each other's kids. So it has turned into this fantastic community of individuals, and we're all there just as a team, as a family, to support each other. And I think that is so important when we talk about resilience, when we talk about trauma-informed communities, is we have to build that community. We have to build that group of people that is willing to be supportive and be there for each other and be each other's person to lean on. So it's one thing that is coming up that we are super excited about, and I'm excited to share with you all, is a production that we were originally planning for this year. Obviously plans have changed due to the pandemic, but it's called If We Listen. If We Listen is an original UIT production, and this show is being created by anonymous submissions from students all over the Michiana area. And these stories are going to detail the struggles and the obstacles and the problems that students right here, kids in our own community, face each and every day. We're talking about fights with friends, family problems, divorce, peer pressure, racism, mental health struggles, and everything in between. And the inspiration behind this concept in this show was to really come together and create a foundation for our kids to have their voice heard and to shed light on the real issues that our youth face right here in our own community. And that as adults, if we can just take a step back and give them the mutual trust and respect they deserve, and we listen to what they have to say, that we can meet those needs and help our kids. So I did share a flyer with Sarah that is included in the digital handout. You can also visit uytinc.org. My email is also on the flyer. And then additionally, when we can get back to in-person activities and we're doing shows again, I always encourage anybody to come out and volunteer. We have a wide range of volunteer opportunities. And as I mentioned earlier, we've just really created this fantastic culture of community. And so if that's something that interests you, we'd love to have you a part of the UIT team. Thank you.
Oh, that's awesome. Thanks so much. Thanks for sharing that anecdote too, that story. And now we're going to hear from Michelle Holloway from the YMCA of Greater Michiana about the melt soft tissue release. We'll do the demonstration after we're done with the panel, so that is coming up. And I believe Denise Peters is also here from the YMCA, and she will speak a little more about some of the volunteer opportunities or other programs, ways to get involved.
So the YMCA is a nonprofit organization. We use Christian principles through our programming to help build healthy mind, body, spirit. And that's for all. We are a diverse community. What I do, well, I do a lot. And when you're at the Y, you wear a lot of different hats. But as far as this context, I do a lot of stress management with our kids. I do it with adults as well. Today, for instance, I was at a school all day teaching stress management. I kind of feel like Rachel and I have a lot of the movements with the breathing and the arms, and so I do restorative stretching with them, but I use the melt ball as a tool. The melt, it hydrates the connective tissue and it relaxes the nervous system. And a quick story, I went to a school last year and I walked in, I got a lot of attitude. This was a group of kids that do get into a lot of trouble. That's why they're at that school. And one of the girls walked in a couple of minutes late and she gave me an attitude like, who is she? And so I said, you know what, just try it. If you don't like it, you don't have to do it again, you know? At the end of my 20 minutes, I could hear her tell her friend, girl, don't you feel good? Oh my gosh, that was so good. And then the next time I came in to visit, she was like, oh, it's her again, it's her, you know? So clearly it made a difference for her and it calmed her because she had such attitude, you know? And so, yeah, it's a rewarding experience working with that group of kids. Yeah. I'm not sure what else to say about that.
Oh yeah, no, that's great. Denise, did you want to say anything about ways to get involved programs if you're here?
Yeah, I am here. And so, hi everyone. I'm Denise Peters from the YMCA also. And Michelle does a lot of things actually. And so it's really good. We have gone into several schools, as she said, and the melt is very effective. So I think one of the greatest things about the YMCA that I would say is we have so many resources and we have a lot of programs, But the programs are not what's important. It's the opportunity that the programs can provide. And I like how Derek was saying about building the relationships, and I can certainly tie into the mindful you. So it's like looking at those kind of things. But I think one of our biggest assets that we can bring to the community of South Bend is we are willing to like morph into what is needed with our community partners to have more impact together. So we have a ton of resources and many things that we can do, but with our community partners, I think we can do so much more. Collectively together in our schools. I know we do our corporate wellness. So Michelle has also gone in, and she didn't say anything, but with the MELT, she's gone in and helped teachers and in organizations for the stress reduction of the teachers, and especially right now because there's so much stress in that area. But our before and after school programs, you know, just looking at the opportunity it provides for kids to be in a safe environment. And then they come in a safe environment, they get their homework done, and they get help with that, but they also get that mindful time, that reflection time of the day, and then some physical activity in that. So I think just with the YMCA, like we have the programs of karate, we have like skill development and different things, we have the stress management type things, and we are willing to partner with any of our community partners, to be in collaboration and partnership with them, to go into schools or to have collectively offer something together. So I think that's one of the biggest things that we want to make sure that we push is it's not about a particular program, but it's about the opportunities and the skills and the relationships that a program gives kids the opportunity to experience. New things, build confidence and self-esteem, which we know and all that helps to build that resilience factor. So I know in the book it talked about, you know, just the release of that stress through any kind of physical activity. And then when a child has physical activity, and like the karate, it really concentrates on the discipline and the respect and the responsibility at the same time. All those character developments, it's using that physical body and that movement and becoming aware of what's happening with your body and how you're using it. So I like the mindful you, the breathing, and knowing where you are in your sense of your body. So that was just to see that, how we're all so engaged. And I actually was just in deep reflection earlier this week, thinking about how all of us, on nonprofits and people contributing to our communities and trying to help resolve these problems, we need to collectively work together. We are the glue that holds, if you look at all the issues and all the things that we help support and bring together, we cover the gaps. So I think it's really important that we look and we be very mindful ourselves of how we can collectively work together and come in as a force to support our communities. So anybody can reach out if you have an idea how we could collaborate. I know that Margaret, I kind of sent her a message earlier today, and maybe there's an opportunity we could do that. So, and Becky and I have talked about even bringing some of our youth that are in foster care, traumatized youth, into the facilities to either do a swim event at one of the YMCAs or to do something in the gymnasium, or to do a family night and have the kids, where the parents can go do something in stress management and the kids could do an activity in the gymnasium or something. But just all kinds of ideas. If anybody has a brainstorm on that, please be sure to reach out. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Yeah, I think that was one of the things we were hoping might come out of this series, is connecting people. So that's great, thank you. Now, Margaret, you mentioned Margaret Goldsmith from Camp Mariposa. Could you please tell us about your organization and work?
Sure. Excuse me. Sure. Camp Mariposa is a partnership between Aluna and Oaklawn, and it started in 2011 in South Bend. There are 15 Camp Mariposas throughout the country, and it's a camp for 9 through 12-year-olds whose lives have been affected by substance use disorder. So they have a family member who is addicted. About 40% of our kids are in foster care. But so we have, the camp meets 6 weekends a year, not this year, but most years. We meet at Camp Raybird during the school year so that, you know, we have the campus available. And we have mentors that come in, and during the course of the weekend, we talk to kids about mindfulness. We do yoga with them. They've done drumming. We use a lot of those therapies. We always have a therapist and we have a registered nurse, and Becky happens to be one of them, on duty during camp. But we talk to the kids about what it's like, what it means to be from an addicted family. I don't know if anyone's familiar with the 7 C's, but the 7 C's are first 3 they are not responsible for. They didn't cause it, they can't control it, they can't cure it. The second 4 are, but what they can do is communicate their feelings, take care of themselves, celebrate themselves, and make good choices. And so we talk about those and examples of what that looks like all the time. Since we have a therapist there, so we always have a therapeutic session. We write, another thing that we do is write a letter to addiction. And so that helps the kids get, some of their feelings off their chest. The best thing I think about Camp Mariposa is it's just an incredibly safe environment for these kids to be with other people like them. And as soon as the book started talking about the support group for the veterans, I just thought that's camp. I mean, the kids sit down and they say things they could never say to people at school. They know they're all in the same situation. They all have that bond, and they can talk about what it's like, their feelings, and what, just what their lives have been like without judgment. And it's just an incredible process. I lost it just a second. But anyway, they just, it's really important to the kids. So it's 9 through 12-year-olds. Once they hit 13, they age out. It doesn't mean at 13 we throw them out. Some kids still need to come a few times. But beyond the camp, we have an alumni program, and the alumnus meet a couple times a year. I just got funding for them to meet 4 times a year, and yesterday a grant application went in to get more funding so that the 13 through 17-year-olds can meet monthly. So hopefully we'll get that. Then the kids can also apply to be a junior counselor after they've aged out, so they can still keep coming to camp, but in a different role as a counselor. And then once they hit 18, they can become mentors. So we have 2 girls right now that went through the program. They were junior counselors, and now they turned 18 and they're mentors. So they're a part of the program, which is very cool because they've been with it forever. They talk about how important it was to them. We have, since COVID, we've been having, instead of having, weekend camps, we've been having virtual camps monthly. So I set up times that they get on, and we started off with a 40-minute camp that lasted for 2 hours. I send them a packet of materials, and we go through some of the things that we do at camp, keeping in mind that they're at home, so I have to kind of adjust things a little bit. But they've enjoyed that, but they were so tired of screen time. And in September, we managed to have 2-day camps. We had a camp at Potawatomi Park for the day from 9 to 6, and it was awesome. They just loved it. It was great. And then the following week, I had an alumni program from 9 to 6 at Rome Village at the Adventure Park, and it was very cool. So we were all anxious for things to get back to normal. So to make this program run, it requires, my job is to recruit kids, recruit mentors, and recruit funders. That's all. So if anybody is interested in being a mentor, during the regular camp season, anybody who's interested can give me a call or send me an email or fill out an application online at oaklawn.org/Camp Mariposa. And then I'll contact you and we'll start the process. It requires an interview and a lot of paperwork and a 3-hour training. We ask that mentors make a commitment of a year and attend 4 camps at least. It's not so bad now if it's a day camp, but when it's a weekend, 4 weekends is a lot of weekends to give up. If you have a family, it's a big commitment, but it's so worth it. It is just so worth it. It's just so incredible to be around these kids and to know that you're such an important part of their lives. I mean, they are just so comfortable with us after a couple of camps, and they feel so safe, and they need to feel safe. So I think that's all I have to say.
Great, thank you. Yeah, what a wonderful program. And Becky Zakowski, who moderated last week, just said in the chat about how she volunteered a few weekends ago for an outside day camp, and it was awesome, and the culture with the campers was really great. So thank you so much for sharing. And we have one panelist left, Christy Burgess from Robinson Shakespeare Company.
Yeah, so my name is Christy Burgess. I work for the Robinson Community Learning Center, which I could spend just 5 minutes talking about it. Like, actually, I could spend like hours. I love this. Like, it's an amazing place. The center we joke that our youngest participant is 9 months old with our Talk With Your Baby program, and our oldest is 99 with our senior book clubs. But I'll focus right now on the Robinson Shakespeare Company and the work that we do. I also want to talk a little bit about how I got into this, which is my own trauma. I always say my family puts the fun in dysfunctional because by the age of 6, I had all sorts of really awful abuses. And I think that what happened to me is I reading this book, I was like, okay, all right, I see this. And I just went numb, and in the same thing that you're not prepared to deal with it, you shove everything down. And that's what I did, because it was easier for me to feel nothing than to feel everything. Because as soon as you let it out, it just seems like it was overwhelming. And so theater saved my life because it gave me an emotional vocabulary that I didn't have before. And how I describe it is letting the steam out of the pot, because in a way you're able to practice emotions, and where we don't really have another avenue to do that. One of the things that we do with the Robinson Shakespeare Company is traditionally we go into schools and I work, I miss them so much. I work with about 400 children per week, and with something called drama integration, which is not, I know a lot of people are like, it's doing readers theater. It's not. It's taking learning objectives and finding ways to make it active. And because I think this is adorable, I'm sharing this with you. One of the things that we'll do with teachers is we'll ask them, what do you guys need? What does your class need? What are you working with? And there was one, I think the second graders who just were not getting along. They were angry at each other, and they were like, I don't want to be your friend. And so we had these little characters. I'm from Alaska, so a lot of Alaskan things will come into my stories about 2 Arctic foxes. And there was this wolf who had a little brother, but didn't want his little brother to be friends with the other foxes. And so I did something called Teacher Enroll, where I was like, okay, guys, when I put on this hat, I'm going to become Greg. Don't ask me how. That's how we got the name of the older brother, Wolf, but that's what it is. And I was like, well, we can't be friends with them. They're a fox. I'm a wolf. And the kids were like, no, you can be friends with anyone. And I don't know if anyone ever read, Augusto Boal or Paulo Freire, but they talk about this, about having the Joker to kind of push it back on the kids and really make them think about well, we can't be friends, we're different, and allowing them to really come up with that. Why do they think that? Helping them practice to make those decisions. So I don't know if you can see this picture. It is adorable. This is a caribou. This is a wolf. And it says, oh, so this is Greg writing letters, and the children wrote letters as Greg, and it says, hi, this is Greg. In the inside, we are the same. I'm sorry that for a lot of years now, I have been mean. Can I ask you if I can come over, or can you come over? Can you come over 9 a.m. to 4 p.m.? Love, Greg. And it says, best friend caribou, best friend wolf. But this is, guys, I have lots. I'm going to show you one more. So this is my sound. I'm trying to pick which one I want to read. There's just so many. So this is where we use the vocabulary words that the teachers gave us, which are trustworthy, acquaintance, jumble, scornfully, logical, and scourging, which you're like, what am I going to do with this? But we had something where there was a fox who didn't want to share her toys. We acted this out in a guided narration, or what we call a wish, which I am happy to share. I love these things. The kids love them and they remember them. It's amazing. Like when we had our last year at McKinley, the kids were in 5th grade and they remember lessons that we did in 2nd grade because we were acting them out. It's so cute. But it says, "Dear Casey, I want you to come to my birthday party because I want to prove that I am trustworthy, and I want you to come as a friend, not as an acquaintance. I cleaned my jumble of toys on the floor for you. I'm so sorry for talking scornfully to you. I know I hurt your feelings, so I want to make it up to you. So there is a logical explanation. Sorry. Sincerely, your friend Diane. P.S. I made your favorite salmon cake. I was encouraging to find the ingredients." And then this is picture and the little cake, which is adorable. So yeah, normally we work with about 400 kids per week. We also have our flagship program, the Robinson Shakespeare Company, which is like my favorite thing ever. One of the things I think that we do that's unique is we engage long-term diverse youth. And I mean, these kids will start in 3rd grade and they will go until 12th grade. And then they'll come back as AmeriCorps. It's amazing. I'm a really tough teacher because I love them. And I also, will definitely challenge them. I mean, one of the things that the book said, I even wrote this down, is reciprocity is being truly heard and seen by people around us, feeling that we are held in someone else's mind and heart. The motto of the Robinson Center with our programs is changing lives one relationship at a time. And I think that that's what we do because we're able to know the kids. And me as a teacher and as a director, like I'll ask the kids, I'm like, do you always get the role you want? And they'll say no. And I'll say, what do you need? Or what will you get? And they're like, the role that we need. And there's so many times I take my beautiful girls and I cast them as these horrible people, like as Iago or as Iagamo, like these really terrible people. Because someday they're going to have to walk into a room and they're going to have to say something unpopular. And I want them to get used to feeling that, to know that that they can do that they can stand up for themselves, that they can stand up for people, that they are practicing those things. I mean, I love the fact that there was a whole chapter of theater because it changes lives. And what breaks my heart in this, though, is they talk about how for every dollar that's spent on programs for children, for families, it pays off $7 in the future. And unfortunately, we're looking at the arts as if they're extra, not as if we are teaching these kids social and emotional learning, empathy, how to work together, how to listen to other people, how to see other people's perspectives. These are all things that are done. Theater is a great equalizer when you're on stage. It does not matter who your parents are, how much money they make, where you come from, what school you go to. When you are on stage, you are all equal. One of the things I love about our program is we are able to provide all of our programs in schools for free. We write a lot of grants. It's not always easy, and sometimes it's very scary. For our full-time, for our whole year, I think we charge $100 for the entire year because we want to make sure that we have access to arts for all. I mean, and I've never turned anyone away because they can't pay it. Because we're missing out on a generation of artists because they're cost prohibitive. And I think that that's such a shame. So yeah, this book was amazing. It helped me articulate some of the things I feel. And thank you so much for having me on the panel.
Great, thank you. Were there any ways for people to get involved with your work?
Absolutely. Unfortunately, with COVID, we're pretty locked down right now, but there's a lot of different ways that you can volunteer. We have a wonderful tutoring program. We're always looking for people to help. Also, since we do write a lot of grants, if you are ever interested in funding or donating, we will be delighted to accept them. And you should come and see our plays. They're really great.
Wonderful, thank you. So that is our introduction to all our panelists. Since we're getting a little close on time, I thought if anyone just quickly wants to share any advice you would give kind of related to your work to people who are dealing with increased stress in this stressful year, maybe even trauma from recent events. And I won't call on you individually, but if anyone would like to share, if you have any tips and advice for us.
I was going through a tough time, and I think Nancy Michaels, who's on here, who works closely with Volshana Lucky, I called Volshana. I was like, I just feel overwhelmed. And Volshana told me, she's like, you have a hot amygdala, which I understood way more after reading this book. And she's like, take a break. don't turn on the news. I'm like, but, and she's like, walk away from it. Go watch Disney movies, crochet. The biggest thing I can say to everybody is give yourself grace and your partner's grace, even though if you were sick of their faces, like I love my husband so much. And this meeting is being recorded. But yeah, give yourself grace and sometimes turn off the news.
I think, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
This is Denise. I just think it's really important. Something I've been trying to practice is practicing gratitude, even in tough times. So being grateful, find the things I can be grateful for and concentrating on that. And that's even in our workforce, is being grateful for the people and all of you that are giving so much to our communities to help support. And so something I've tried to do is start writing at least 2 notes a week to individuals who I'm thanking them for all that they do. And there's so many people working so hard. So I'm sure each one of you can think of someone. So either a phone call or a note, that's something, and actually that fills me up at the same time. So.
And I wanted to echo something that I know Nancy had talked about, and then also Jennifer had brought up, is that all of these things that we're talking about in the handling of trauma and stress are a process. And, you know, in this kind of society, we want to like have a gratitude practice and do it one day and feel better, right? Or have a mindfulness practice. And something that COVID taught Mindful You was how powerful the process over time can be. Patty Carbon at Darden is such an amazing leader that we have been doing yoga and mindfulness with her students for a really long time, very consistently. So we have great relationships with the teachers, and they have their own adult mindfulness practices, which then they can share with the kids, and then the kids, so they have the shared language that has been our goal, because we've gotten to work with the kids for so long. And then as soon as COVID happened and everything shut down, we were then able to send out these little videos. And because it was this community of a shared language of yoga and mindfulness and self-care, that these little snippet videos, they knew us, we knew them, and they landed. These kids were making their own videos, their yoga poses. They were sending in videos of them breathing with their families. And it was because of this process that Patty had in place and was very committed to, and was always trying to find money for. And, you know, and so you know, people who are new to this, or people who don't do this all the time, we recommend things, but it's like you have to put little drops in the bucket of whatever it is, theater, you know, melt, gratitude, all the amazing things that you guys are talking about. That's just kind of been my big COVID takeaway. So little practices of mindfulness, just like pause and be for 3 breaths, and over time, huge changes.
I think one thing I've definitely learned, and a piece of advice that I try to give often is, even in the midst of a global pandemic, I feel like we're all still racing from thing to thing to thing to thing. And I think we all have to remember to take a second and slow down and listen to each other. I always say through my work, if you had to ask me what the 10 moments that have stuck with me are, none of them have to do with the show going perfectly or everybody getting their lines right or the set looking great. It always comes back to those moments where I slowed down and I saw a kid in need, or I saw a kid struggling, or I saw a team member that needed a little pick-me-up or words of advice, and taking that time with them. Because most of the time I walk away and I know that conversation helped them, but I also will walk away and realize that something they said impacted me. And so I think it's just really important, especially now, that we continue just to slow down and listen and connect in a world where it seems some days virtually impossible to gain connection the way we did 8 months ago. And I'd also just like to add, because I know we're all here in the business of building community, and kind of building off something Christy said, I think is really important, is giving ourselves grace. We are all dealing with an unprecedented time, and we've all figured out how to adapt and overcome some obstacles, and it's not always going to be perfect, but we're still building community, and we are still making a positive impact together.
Thank you. Oh, that's great. Does anyone have anything else you wanted to say? Okay, then Michelle will now give us a brief demonstration of the melt method foot treatment. It's not exactly maybe easy to understand without being there, but this is the best we could do.
So does everybody have a ball or no? You're missing out. Rachel, make sure you don't stand too much on that ball. All right. So what I'm going to do, I won't go through, because of time's sake, I won't go through what I would do in a class. And that's why I didn't give too much information, because I was going to give a little quickie of that. I'll just go right to the foot treatment. And I'm going to change this so that you can see my feet. All right. So we use a ball that's soft and squishy. Okay, it's about the size of a golf ball, but it is soft. And ideally we hit some position points on the foot, but I have them stand up and I have them notice how they feel. We go through a little bit of breathing, and then I have them step their foot in the very center of the ball. And this is a position point for the diaphragm. We rock back and forth a few times, and then I have them just hold it there and allow themselves to breathe, hoping to teach them how to breathe into the diaphragm. And then from that point, I would have them lift their foot, and we take the ball right behind the big foot knuckle, and again, come forward. And this helps release with the neck tension. After a breath, you step off, line the ball up with the outside edge, and then cover up the ball. If they feel pain when they step on it, they need to just back off their pressure. The last position point for a mini treatment would be right in front of the heel. So we come forward, compress it, and then we add just a little bit of motion side to side. And then from here, it would be light pressure, quick movements, rolling the whole entire foot, which usually feels really good. And the students always respond to this one really well. And then we just switch feet. I usually take a moment for them to notice the difference between the foot that we did and the foot that we did not do, so that they understand it actually did something. And then we, again, start at the very center of the foot, a little bit of rocking to allow the body to get used to the pressure underneath the foot, of the ball underneath the foot. And then holding the pressure, allowing a couple of breaths. And again, just stepping back, adjusting the foot so that the ball is right behind the big foot knuckle. And then they come forward and compress, taking another breath. Lifting the foot, lining the ball up with the outside edge of the foot, covering up. And this helps with the tension that we hold in the upper back. And then finally, that last position point in front of the heel is for low back. And after a breath, we'd start the side to side motion. I tell the kids it's like a windshield wiper. And then again, weight into the back foot, light pressure, like a little kid scribbling on paper. And then we just do that again on both feet. I'm going to adjust the camera. There is also where I have them take this ball and lightly touch a spot on their temple and create like little massaging action, explaining that we hold tension in our jaw when we get angry and frustrated. So again, the ball is here, light pressure. And then finally behind the ear and on the base of the skull. And pretty much that's it. And again, we go through the motion of the breathing. What's that? Do it on the face. Oh, Denise said to do it on the face. All right, she must be in the office doing it. So we would compress the side of the temple. And I asked them to close their eyes and take a few breaths. And you absolutely could take 2 fingers and just do it. But it's light pressure. Close your eyes, sit up tall, and just have a relaxing breath. And then we stop our circular motion and just breathe. We remove the ball from the temple and take it to the jaw. And a lot of times the kids don't know where to put it. So I just have them open and close their mouths a couple of times. And the muscle that pops up, that's where I want the ball to go. Light pressure, close your eyes, and just massage the jawline. And again, we stop the circular motion and take a breath. And then from here, we place the ball right behind the ear. And add your motion. And then once again, just pause and take a full breath. We take the ball from that hand to the other. Start at your temple, light pressure. Close your eyes, relax your shoulders. Try to keep the shoulders down and away from the ears. And again, just compress and take a breath. We take the ball from the temple to the jaw, find the muscle in the jaw. Add your compression and add your circles. And once again, just pause and take a full breath. And then we take that ball right behind the ear. Once again, add your circles. Pause and breathe. And then to finish off, you're just going to take the ball right there to the center of the forehead. And this is where you can kind of explore and notice where you're carrying some tension. And sometimes the kids will say it's up high, or it's in the middle, or it's down by my nose. But they just massage that action. And then I have them place the ball in their desk and just, we go through the breathing again. And usually at that point, I'll give them a little visualization. So, and they can create their own, but it's a good way for them to understand. Sometimes when I'm angry or frustrated, I need to just go to a quiet spot away from that frustration, and I can close my eyes, I can massage and just breathe. And then in a minute or two later, I'm okay. I can go back and talk to somebody about what the problem is. That's it.
Thank you. That was great. That just looks like it feels so good on your foot. There was a question about what is the ideal ball to use. I think there's a special ball, right?
Ball. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we do have these at the Y. You could definitely order them online. They're just a lot cheaper at the Y because you don't have to pay tax and shipping.
Good tip.
But I do tell people, like, if you don't have something, you can't get one of these, try doing something like that, especially on your feet with a racquetball, because it's very similar, or a tennis ball.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So now we'll just have a few minutes in breakout rooms. We're pretty close to the end, so just about 5 minutes. Here's some prompts just to start you off, but feel free to talk about anything, you know, that you've heard so far. So just the prompts are about, what do you see as potential limitations of drugs and talk therapy, which is the most common approaches to mental health care? And, you know, how do approaches that incorporate the physical body, like yoga and theater, address trauma recovery in a different way, or maybe approaches that focus on relationships and community? So, breakout rooms. When you see that message, please join your breakout room. And looks like we're pretty even. And then we'll bring you back in about 5 minutes. You'll see a warning at 1 minute. Zoom the recording. So yeah, Christy, did you have something you wanted to share?
Gosh, guys, I'm so sorry that I meant to like ignore the text box and then it just went away. But I was telling a story about, we were talking about catharsis and about like working things out on stage. And I'll never forget when I had a Juliet whose father had committed suicide. And she had this moment when we were in rehearsal, and there's this line where it says, "Come chords, come nurse, I'll to my wedding bed, and death, not Romeo, shall take my maidenhead." And then she stopped and she looked at me. And, I've known this girl for like the majority of her life. And she goes, and I said, in the other room, in the other room. And so we went over there and I held her as hard as I could. I just hugged her as she cried and I just held her. And then I said, I'm so glad you're crying. And she laughed. We both laughed. And I said, why did I say this? And she's like, because I haven't. She's like, I haven't cried. And so I told her, because as a director, I don't agree. I'm just gonna say this right now, even though it's being recorded. I don't really agree with how people were pushed in the book, theater wise. I feel like you need to let people make their own journey. It's not something you should force into. But I told her, I was like, you don't have to. I was like, but if you want to, you can go in and do the scene. And she said, she took a moment. She's like, I'm going to do it. And then she did. And oh my God, I don't cry in class because I want to be present for the kids. But I tell you, I was like, and I went home and told my husband and just wept because I was so proud of her that was something that she was working through, that theater, again, is that safe place for her to practice those emotions. Yeah, catharsis. Or what is it called? I'm going to say it wrong. Alexithymia, giving no words for feelings. But then we do. Thank you.
Say it one more time. I didn't catch it.
It's so the prefix is a, lexi is words, and then thymia.
Thank you. Any other final thoughts? I put the link again in the chat to all the presenters' contact information about their organizations. Thank you so much for sharing that. Please take a look. Any other final thoughts? You can put it in the chat also.
Something that I thought of when we were talking is that if you go to our website, there are lots of little practices, little bite-sized practices like what we did at Darden. And so if you work with kids and you want to just have a little bite-sized mindfulness piece or a little bite-sized pose, you can go to our website and choose, and it could help you lead kids through that. So just an opportunity to work mindfulness into your work with kids.
And
Amazing.
if I can just reiterate something that Margaret said in our breakout room, right? That we don't have to be hopeless because we all can do something. I'm not saying it as well as she said it in our breakout room, but right, just showing up, right? Like going out and being nice to people. All of the panelists touched on it in one way or the other. There's never anything but fulfillment when you take the time to be in community with somebody, and that doesn't cost anybody anything, right? Now research, right? It's just time, but it pays us back in ways. So I don't know. Thank you for bringing that up, Margaret.
Also, thank you for the work that everybody does. I mean, it's amazing. Doing yoga with people, Camp Mariposa. I've heard such phenomenal things about it. At the Y. Thank you guys so much.
This is just so uplifting to be with you lovely people that do amazing things. We're all in our little silos of our lives, and plus COVID makes it 10 times worse. And so this is just amazing to hear how wonderful the work is in our community. Thank you all for what you do. So cool.
And thank you to the library for doing a lot of connecting through this time. It's been amazing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we have one more session left next week. So same time, same Zoom link. Tell your friends. We also will post the recordings on a website that Oaklawn was kind enough to create. I'll send that link out in the email again. You should all be on that mailing list. So thanks again to all the panelists. Thanks to everyone for attending. I hope you have a wonderful night, and I hope to see you next Tuesday. Bye.